Welcome back to another edition of the Old Fashioned Real Estate Show. I'm Brian Leverage.
And I'm Jeff Holst.
And we're glad to be back with you once again.
And today we have a really interesting topic. We're going to talk about remote investing or investing from a distance.
Other markets outside of where one lives, basically.
We're going to teach you how to do it, and we're going to tell you why you should or shouldn't do it right after this.
Welcome to the Old Fashioned Real Estate Show, where hosts Brian Leverage and Jeffrey Holst for our old fashioned real estate advice.
Well, so first let's identify why somebody would want to do remote investing versus investing in their own market, right?
Okay.
That's kind of the question you got to be able to answer first, right? I'm from Los Angeles originally. It's really expensive out there. The numbers don't make a ton of sense, right? So a person living in a high cost market such as that might look somewhere else.
Sure. Well, so the thing that people need to decide when they're trying to decide where to invest, right, versus like how to do it, is what are they looking for? Cash flow or appreciation or some mix? So there's a lot of places in the Midwest, for example, where there's a lot more cash flow, but there's very little appreciation. There are other places like on the coasts where there's quite a bit of appreciation, but very little or no cash flow. Mm-hmm. And there are places in between, like Chattanooga, that really has a nice mix of both, which is how I think both of us ended up investing here in Chattanooga. I know for sure that's how you ended up here. So why don't you talk a little bit about your decision making, not in how you picked Chattanooga necessarily, but like how you started investing in Chattanooga before you got to Chattanooga.
Sure. Yeah, so it's like many things driven by demographics, right? We have in the Southeast in particular, and in Tennessee, more specifically, there's a lot of job growth, a lot of migration, people moving here. And that's only kind of exacerbated over the last few years from where it was when I started investing here 13 plus years ago. Job migration growth creates job growth. Those things usually, you could go chicken or egg, but they're definitely not only correlated, but
Sure.
causal as well.
So that's how you kind of picked Chattanooga. But how was the experience for you when you first started investing in Chattanooga while you were still living on the West Coast?
A lot of trial and error, right? So
Fair.
This is, it's not for the faint of heart. You have to be engaged. You have to be willing to try new things and communicate, frequently. You need people that you can trust and who will communicate back with you. And there's just a lot of learning that goes into
Sure.
that, because you don't really do it without just sort of jumping in the first place,
Yeah.
right?
So was your first property that you bought outside of LA in Chattanooga?
Actually, we bought 2 in Memphis.
Okay.
Those were the first investments. And then the first investment in Chattanooga was a package of 19 houses.
Okay, all right. So from California, you bought 19 houses in Chattanooga?
Yes.
How'd that go?
Well, a little rocky at first. The neighborhood wasn't great. It was we made typical beginning investor mistakes where you're kind of just looking at things on paper. We were paying, I think, $35,000 a door for something that fixed up at market would rent for about $750 a month. So it was a
Sounds
2%
good.
deal,
Yeah.
right? But poor management, poor tenant selection, all the things encompassing poor management really led to us not getting much in the way of a return the first couple of years, right? Because the management company would put a tenant in place, and within a couple of months, the tenant would stop paying. You'd have an eviction, which costs money. Then you'd spend several thousand more getting the unit ready to rent. Lather, rinse, and repeat.
So this is actually a lesson, right? So when we're talking about how to invest remotely, one of the keys, I think, is to have good property management, right?
Yeah.
So you have to find the right people
Yeah.
to manage it. Now, I've taken care of that in my own personal remote investing, because I if you don't know, I live in Chattanooga most of the time. I actually have.
Do you?
I don't know. Maybe I live in Puerto Rico. It's hard to know for sure. One of the or
The
the
man
other.
of the world.
But regardless, I have a fairly substantial portfolio of properties in Michigan still to this day, and these are properties that I started buying. In fact, the very first investment real estate I bought was a condo unit in a suburb of Detroit, from Tennessee. I was living here, and my first investment was not in Tennessee. Now, I do think that was probably a good decision at the time because properties were very cheap in 2011 in Detroit. But and we still own it today. This condo we paid $30,000 for, and now rents for $1,200 a month, and has no debt on it because we paid cash for it. Like in 2011, is it works. It works.
Yeah,
exactly. It's a nice little investment. But the way I've solved that for me is I partnered with a friend of mine who had a property management company, and I continue to partner with him. And I'm very much the same way I've done with you and your property management company. That's been my strategy to get good property management, is to find the very best property managers I can and then become friends with them.
Yes. Now, to be fair, that's a strategy not often employed that you may want to consider. But if you don't want to put in that kind of a time investment, making friends with people and so forth, although Jeff is really personable.
But I don't have a property management company, so it won't be useful to be my friend. But in fairness, though, the point still remains. Like, you have to find good property management. Certainly, if you're coming to Chattanooga, you can look at Brian's company, First Property Management. Or if you're going to other markets, though, you just need to get in there, talk to some real estate investors, see who they're using, and sort that out.
Right, and that's something I think we'll get into, in our next episode, in fact, is a little bit on the networking side of
how
things,
you can meet these people.
But you need to be willing to spend money traveling to that market, meeting people, meeting with investors. If you're going to invest remotely, you can't do it having never seen the place or been there, because it's a lot different. I speak from experience. Looking at things on a map, you kind of feel like you might know a city or an area based on looking at it. And that much would be true, but then actually coming here and seeing things with your own eyes, it's a much different story.
And I see this regularly, right? People reach out to me on Bigger Pockets or whatever, and they'll say, hey, I see you're investing in Chattanooga. I'm just about to buy this property. Yeah. What do you think? And it's like, whoa, I don't like that area. And they're like, but the rent 1 mile away is $1,100 a month. And it's like, well, yeah, but 1 mile can make a big difference in a city. I mean, you cross a railroad track, or you pass a factory, urban district, or whatever it might be, and all of a sudden it's a completely different market. And sometimes that's okay, but you do need to understand that market. So when you're investing remotely, good property management, spend the time and energy to get a deep understanding of the market that you're going to invest in. And this is, I think, something you want to do before you buy, right? Both of these things, you want to be getting yourself into that market, learning about the market, talking to other investors, meeting property managers, probably bankers. In other words, building out an entire team. If your property management's not going to have contractors and stuff for you, then you're going to need to build that team out too. This is why I'm a big fan of property management, because you can utilize their resources. If you get a good property manager, they'll help you build a lot of your team.
And there's a lot of, we'll touch on some of the pros and cons of remote investing, right?
Sure.
A lot of people say, starting, I think Kiyosaki was a big advocate of this back in the day. He may have changed, but always like invest in your own market, or look to invest where you live first, right?
Yeah.
And then, and if you can't, well then go look someplace else.
Yeah, but then you've got people like David Green, who lives out on the West Coast in California, and he's always investing out of state, and he in fact wrote an entire book about that.
Yeah.
About investing, out-of-state investing, and obviously, if you want to dig more into this
topic. There's a lot of people that are very successful at doing it, right? At investing remotely, that is.
Yeah, and of course, you have the different ways to invest remotely. You can invest in somebody else's deals, you can do turnkey properties, or you can do like Brian did and buy a package of houses, right? You can do it across the whole array of spectra. Mm-hmm. And truthfully, I always say that the secret to deciding where to invest is just to make sure you really have good market knowledge. So for me, investing in Chattanooga makes sense because I like this market and I happen to live here. Mm-hmm. As far as investing in Michigan goes, well, I'm from Michigan and I have a lot of people I know in Michigan, and I know that market better than, say, like Cleveland, which might be a great place to invest, but I don't know, right? Because I don't have any market knowledge there. So if you're going to pick a place, if you're going to just like Google, like, where's the best place to buy real estate, whatever comes up, you're just going to invest there. not the best strategy, I don't think. But if you're going to do that, the next step will be get on a plane, go learn about that market, meet people in that market. And that's what we see a lot of out-of-state investors reach out to us that want to learn about Chattanooga. And we encourage people to do that because it's important for people to really learn about the markets that they want to invest in.
Yep.
Cool. So what else? Disadvantages to investing out of state?
Disadvantages are you're not near your properties, right? You can't really handle things yourself if something goes wrong, right? So you have to, again, have that team and or trust, really both.
And there is, so the converse to that to me is like one of the things I do regularly when I don't have anything else to do. I just get in my car and I drive around and I just drive by my stuff. One of my friends calls that surveying your kingdom, like just driving around and seeing what's going on. But there's real wisdom to that. If you put your eyes on a property, as the owner of the property, even more than like a property manager, you're going to see things that other people don't see. You're going to notice, oh, you know what, the bushes haven't been trimmed properly, or the gutters look like they might be falling down in the corners, and stuff like that the property managers may notice eventually, but usually not until someone complains about it. And so being able to see it for yourself is a huge advantage. And so if you're going to invest out of state, you're either going to want to go and visit the properties occasionally, or you're going to want to really have someone that can look at them for you.
And you can even hire a third party to go and drive and take pictures or video of your properties for you. I mean, it's an additional expense, but if you want to add that kind of layer,
even if you just have someone drive by once a month or something, it might not be very expensive to just say to somebody that in the market, hey, I'll give you $100 a month to drive by my properties and look at
and also in the same vein, you get somebody that calls with a clogged toilet. You're not going to go fix it yourself. A property manager's going to call, and that may be more expensive because they mark it up, etc. I mean, there's some potential additional expenses.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're scaling, of course, you can always probably create your own team to manage your properties. But I mean, it's difficult to do if you're buying one house to start a property management company where that house is.
Exactly.
All right. Well, anything other thoughts about investing remotely? Should people do it?
People should, because it gives you, I think the biggest pro is scalability, right? Because if you're successful in one market and you figure out, the key elements to putting together a good team and then managing that team, because that is an ongoing process, by the way, then you can employ that same strategy in different markets that you've identified as, growth or cash flow or whatever, really. And, some of the people we see, online and people for that matter, invest in multiple markets.
Yeah. So in fact, so do we actually invest in multiple markets in multiple states. And of course we do that through investing with other people sometimes, but also on our own. So I would answer the question like this. Should somebody invest in another market? Should they invest remotely? Maybe. Depends. What are your goals? Do you want to scale? There's some wisdom to just buying your neighbor's house and just calling that it, right? Like, just because you're right there, it's easy to manage. You don't have as much risk because you know your own neighborhood really well. But on the other hand, it just depends on what your goals are. Mm-hmm. There are literally thousands and thousands of markets that make sense. And so it's just about figuring out what your goals are and your strategies. So anyway, that's investing remotely and why we think you should or should not do it.
That's right. And we'll see you again soon.